Hey there, welcome to the first ever Pure Golf Talk, and what better place for a first episode than right here in Pinehurst. And today I am pleased to be joined by the president of Pinehurst Resort, Tom Pashley. Tom, thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here, Taft, and it's fun for me to be able to show off the new golf cottages at Pinehurst Number 8. I don't know if that was part of your script or not, but what a neat setting we're sitting in.
Why don't you set the scene for us as someone who is in charge of and leading all this new here at Pinehurst Resort? We're sitting in this new cottage.
Well, we are days before the opening of the golf cottages at Pinehurst Number 8, and oddly, as a 130-year-old golf destination, Pinehurst does not have any rooms with a view of golf. And so these buildings that we're now sitting in are going to be our first accommodations that have views of golf. We're going to have 9 different cottages, 4-bedroom, 8-bedroom cottages. So we really think that this is going to be kind of the next chapter of what accommodations are like. It's so much fun to stay in the historic Carolina Hotel or the original hotel, the Holly Inn. But when you're with a group of golfers and they kind of want to have their own private experience, I think there's going to be no better choice than the cottages at Number 8.
I think it's very fitting to start with something that is new at Pinehurst Resort because it's something that keeps coming every year, and especially over the past decade. But before we get to all
Yes.
the new stuff, first, why don't you share with us your story of how you got to Pinehurst and what's kept you here for now going on 30 plus years?
Wow. Well, thank you. It's fun to be here with you today, and I know you're doing amazing things. We're proud of you as a local kid from Pinehurst. My brother and I came to Pinehurst. I grew up in Augusta, Georgia, and with the backdrop of the Masters, I started playing golf when I was 10 years old. My brother's 2 years older than I am, so I just wanted to beat him at whatever it was we did, and we started playing golf. And when I graduated from high school, my parents said, take a golf trip. My brother chose Pinehurst. I'd never heard of Pinehurst. And so we came here in 1987. Pinehurst Number 7 was brand new, and it was really cool. And we took so many photos, 35 millimeter camera. We were in the Carolina dining room having 5-course meals. We were way outclassed. But that was my first exposure to Pinehurst on a brother's trip, and I was just overwhelmed. And I think it set an expectation, a foundation for me. We played municipal courses in Augusta. We had never seen things like Pinehurst Number 7 and Pinehurst Number 2. We came back in 1989 and had our second brother's trip to Pinehurst, and it was always in the back of my mind. So then I went on to University of Georgia, was a CPA in Atlanta for 3 years, and then I went to business school. And when I was in graduate school, we did kind of a little exercise before you started, and it's like, close your eyes and imagine where you are 5 years from now. Where are you? What do you see out your window? And my mind was going to Pinehurst for whatever reason. And so when I was in graduate school, I was always trying to find a way to connect myself back to golf, which ultimately led me back to Pinehurst. So I came here in 1996, working on the 1999 U.S. Open. Thought I would move back to Atlanta or go get a real job after the 99 Open, but here I am. It's been 29 years now. It's been such an amazing journey. I never thought I'd stay this long, but now I could never imagine being anywhere else.
The fact that you've now seen all of the U.S. Opens that have come through Pinehurst and helped it become an anchor site for future U.S. Opens, it's just remarkable. What is it about having the tradition of Pinehurst and the history of the game here and balancing it with modern approaches of marketing and digital media?
Yeah, I mean, with the announcement that we just made a few weeks ago, Pinehurst Number 11 is coming, and so I had a lot of time to reflect on that and to think about it, and it really is like we have the best of both worlds. We are not a new place that's trying to establish our credibility and tell you why number 10 and number 11 matter. We get to talk about that. We get to have a Gil Hance Pinehurst Number 4, Tom Doak Pinehurst Number 10, Core Crenshaw Number 11. But we get to couple that with Donald Ross's masterpiece, Pinehurst Number 2, and Tom Fazio's Pinehurst Number 8. So, we get to take you on this journey, and so it truly is and I'm so biased. I am such a homer when it comes to Pinehurst, but you get to go on a golf architecture tour through decades, and so I think there was a time, and I was the head of marketing for a long time here. I think there was a time when as other golf destinations were coming along, and we were, deciding what Pinehurst is and how do we compare ourselves to others. We leaned into history because that was our differentiator. Nobody else has, 1907 Pinehurst #2 Donald Ross, and so I would say we leaned so heavily into history that it became kind of a question: like, is Pinehurst a museum or is Pinehurst a place that's still fun? And you know this, but the watershed moment was when the cradle came along, and suddenly you could play Pinehurst #2 in your Payne Stewart outfit with your +4s and your tam o' shanter, and then you could walk around the corner of the clubhouse and within 150 yards, kick your shoes off, turn on the tunes, and have a cocktail in your hand, play barefoot. That's when Pinehurst suddenly became fun. It wasn't just a history book. It was a living, breathing thing that was moving forward. And I was and I was partly responsible for all the looking backwards because that's kind of what we had. And now we have so much in front of us. It makes it so much fun.
I love how you mentioned the word fun to describe what it's been the last 10 years. And I think as a 23-year-old from Pinehurst, I can agree with that. And I think that your son, Max, would agree with fun as being able to describe the clubhouse and the cradle area, which is a word that we probably wouldn't have been able to use to describe Pinehurst before that.
No, and I regret, Max, my son, who's 18, came into the game a little later in life, and I wish we had the cradle, because if we had the cradle, I would have been able to set the hook with Max, and it would have been fun. I took him and my daughter to the driving range, and I was always shushing them and watch out because there's so much activity, and then we would go play Pinehurst #1, and I would drive him down to the 150 stake in the middle of the fairway, and we'd start there, and I was nervously always looking back at the tee to see if any, and as soon as we teed off, there was somebody on the tee, and suddenly Dad wasn't fun anymore. Dad was like, let's go. If we had the cradle and we could have said, scream at the top of your lungs, have fun, get some M&Ms at the turn, it would have been a game changer. So anyhow, yes, Pinehurst back then was a little more serious, and that's easy to fall into with all the history and tradition and the trophies and the names on the wall that are so historic. It's easy to fall into that, but I think we've clearly crossed that divide now, and Pinehurst is fun.
100%. And the shushing turned into kicking your shoes off and playing a post round on the cradle and just having the best time in golf. What was it that made you want to lean into that change and adding a brewery and adding This'll Do and the cradle and all the other elements that have made Pinehurst fun?
Yeah, I think it literally was, does Pinehurst want to evolve and innovate, or do you just want to continue to lean on history? And Pinehurst #8 wasn't some historic place. It was built in 1995 to celebrate our 100-year anniversary. But we were watching what was happening around, and golf was returning to that more minimalist era, and so I've had the great fortune to travel and see golf played in a lot of different places, and so I think that also it's what I love about my job, but it's also part of what is important in my job is to see what's happening at other places. So, and I guess at this point I'll say that we're so fortunate to be owned by a family, the Dedman family out of Dallas, Texas, that have really owned Pinehurst since 1984. Club Corp owned us. They sold Club Corp in 2006, but retained Pinehurst. And so we are owned by a family, and that family wants Pinehurst to stay relevant and doesn't want to just be a place that used to be really special, that used to host this and used to host that, and maybe could have hosted a U.S. Open every 10 or 20 years. The family, thanks to my boss, Bob Dedman, wants Pinehurst to evolve. And so I think that I'm saying all these great things about what we're doing, but it's all because we are not trying to meet a quarterly earnings statement. We are owned by people who view themselves as stewards to the next generation, and so again, I think, and you know that, I think that is a game changer and a difference maker for what keeps us moving forward.
The Dedman family acquiring that land of the Sandmines and being able to add courses number 10 and now 11, what was the vision of Pinehurst and the Dedman family acquiring that land? And now that it has become a 10th and soon to be 11th golf course, what excites you the most about that property?
Yeah, so the Dedmans and Pinehurst acquired some of this land back in 2000, and we had plans to build. Back then it was Pinehurst number 9 and number 10, and there were efforts were way underway, and but 9/11 kind of stopped everything. We were owned by Club Corp at the time. They said stopped everything, and so that land just began to be reclaimed by nature. And so then the Pitt Golf Course that had been on some of that land as well, when they went out of business and we acquired them in 2010, we now had 900 acres. Some of it had been golf, some of it had been untouched, and so we had 900 acres in 2010, but we didn't need more golf. And so we just sat on it. There were opportunities to sell it for real estate development, but it was the restraint and the long-term thinking of the Dedman family and Pinehurst that allowed us to have it when suddenly post-COVID golf is booming. We need more golf. And we were able to have Tom Doak come in and build Pinehurst number 10, which has been super well received. And now Corin Crenshaw working on number 11. By the way, Corin Crenshaw did a routing on that land back in 2012. They had done the restoration of Pinehurst number 2. We had acquired the pit. We had 900 acres. We said, what would you build here? And so they built a course. We said, looks great. We don't need it. And so we just waited until the time was right. And so now the time is right. We don't see, it's amazing to watch the growth of the game, and the barriers to entry are so low right now, and things are booming. And so what am I most excited about? We have so much energy at the main clubhouse at Pinehurst. 5 golf courses, the Cradle number 2. It is golf's national park. But I think what's going to happen at the Sandmines is if you want to get away from the national park and you want to immerse yourself in nature and you want to have access to a Tom Doak golf course and a Corin Crenshaw course, you're going to have 36 holes with cottages, with a lodge, and you're just going to hear the birds and the crickets, and you'll be able to have an immersive golf experience at Pinehurst, and potentially, I wouldn't advocate it, but potentially never leave. You would never go to the main clubhouse. You might never see the Carolina Hotel, and that's amazing to me to think that people will be able to come here and have a totally different type of experience. So that's what I'm most excited about. And again, it's just for Pinehurst as a 130-year-old golf destination to be able to be innovating is what kind of fires me up every day.
And innovation was one of the things you could point at when you look back to last summer with the U.S. Open and all the success that came out of that week in Pinehurst. The dramatic finish between Bryson and Rory, the John Jeffries, the superintendent of number 2, getting the EJ, Marshall Platter from the USGA because of how great condition that golf course was to host the major championship.
Yeah.
And then all the appreciation that you gave back to the employees after the week. I remember seeing you after the U.S. Open, and we were both just filled with excitement and joy for how well that week went. What are your takeaways now a year out from the U.S. Open?
It was, you mentioned earlier, I've been involved with all 4 of the U.S. Opens that have happened at Pinehurst, and it always seems like there's no way to top the previous one. Each one, especially in 2014, we had back-to-back weeks. How can we possibly raise the bar from there? But this one was so grand. The USGA and the stage that they created around the 18th hole was phenomenal. And then to have the competition come down to the final hole, thinking a playoff might be a reality. It felt like, we had Payne's championship that was amazingly dramatic. Michael Campbell in 05, not as dramatic. Martin Keimer kind of ran away with things in 14, so we felt we were due. We needed something to come down to the last hole. And oh my gosh, to have the heavyweight match with Rory and Bryson, and that shot that Bryson hit. So the takeaways were kind of that, Pinehurst number 2 can stand the test of time. Keimer went low, and there was certainly, you worry about scoring a little bit, but the scoring for 2024 was reasonable. The cream rose to the top. This concept of the anchor site, I think there were some who felt like every 5-6 years at Pinehurst is a lot. But I think after that, people were like, sign me up. I'm ready for more of this. And so it was kind of validation, not that Pinehurst number 2 needed it, but it felt like validation. But more than anything, with everything that's happened here, the USGA coming to town, the World Golf Hall of Fame coming here, the phrase, Pinehurst is the St. Andrews of American golf was more of a tagline, but now it feels real. And that championship kind of etched it in stone that this is the cradle of American golf, the home of American golf. And you have Pinehurst number 2, the USGA, the US Open Rota now that includes us. It really, it felt validating in so many ways.
Yeah, etched in stone, literally, with a plaque now on the 18th hole of number 2 for Bryson's chip out of the bunker.
Yes.
I'll leave you with this. The U.S. Open was such a success. The anchor site will keep plenty more to come. The cradle, we've talked about. The Sandmines, which we've talked about. All this great and exciting things that's happening in the area. We have the 2027 U.S. Women's Amateur coming. We have a joint U.S. Open with the men's and the women's back-to-back in 2029. What now keeps you motivated to say, hey, we brought the bar here, let's take it to even higher heights?
I think what keeps me motivated, Taft, is I meet so many people who still have never been to Pinehurst and who are here for the first time. And I think that, we are so biased, you and I, but there's just something so special about this place that it changed my life for the better after a brother's trip, for high school graduation. And it's set me on a path and took me places I could never imagine. It's like, it's anchor site is this and that, but I think my passion and my mission is to continue to introduce people to this place that we feel so strongly about. And if you haven't been here, whether you play golf or not, there is something that you can learn and connect with at Pinehurst that will inspire you, that'll motivate you. It's Annie Oakley was the first professional at the Pinehurst Gun Club, or it's Donald Ross, or it's the history as a health retreat and spa. I mean, there really is something here for everybody. And I told you I'm a homer, but I just want to keep introducing the magic and the beauty of Pinehurst to as many people as I possibly can. And so, yes, anchor site and U.S. Opens and women's amateurs and maybe I would tell you, like, the Adaptive Open was like a sneaky championship that we never knew would be as transformative as it was. That we hosted the first ever Adaptive Open on Pinehurst number 6, and we've done U.S. Amateurs, we've done Amateur 4-balls, U.S. Opens. I think the Adaptive Open was one of the coolest things that we've ever done. So it's just seeing what's next and continuing to find ways to connect people with Pinehurst is kind of what I look forward to most.
Well, as a Pinehurst native myself, thank you so much for what you've done for the area and what you and the rest of your incredible team at Pinehurst will continue doing to keep Pinehurst fun, as we've discussed in this conversation. Thank you so much, Tom, for coming on.
Taft, we're proud of you. You're doing a great job, and we can't wait to see where you go. And thank you for telling our story. Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Sure.
I'd now like to welcome on to Pure Golf Talk Matt Gibson, the Senior Manager of Digital Content, but I like it how you have it on the IG better. Photo, video, general content man of Pinehurst Resort. Pretty much do it all if you've seen it digitally. Matt, welcome on.
Thanks for having me, man. It's an honor, kind of like full circle moment to be here with you. So yeah, happy to be here. Thank you for having me. Very, very honored to be here.
For some context for that, Matt was my boss the last 2 summers, working north and south the past 2, and then this past year at the 2024 U.S. Open at Pinehurst. And I've learned almost everything that I have through you.
Well, that means
So I
a
want to
lot.
thank you for that, and I'm really excited for this conversation.
That means a lot. It's easy to teach people who want to learn. You know what I mean? I don't know if I really taught you or if you were just like being a sponge and taking it all in, you know what I mean? And that's how I think that's kind of just how I am as a person, you know what I mean? I'm a visual learner, and so I very much need to just see someone do it, and I think that's why I I don't want to get too emotional with 60 seconds in, but like, well, I saw a lot of myself in you, which was just like you saw someone doing it, and now you're like, I get it, I understand it, and yeah. So
Well, they always say to learn from the best, and that's what I've been trying to do the past 2 years. If you haven't already picked up the accents and recognized it from any Pinehurst video you've ever seen, from whether it's Hidden Teas of Pinehurst or the random hole generators on Instagram and TikTok from Matt Gibson, you're from London, England.
Yeah.
Give us the Pinehurst story, more specifically how Pinehurst and Tom Pashley found you, and then most importantly, how they've been able to keep you on still.
It's I'll give you the sort of like abridged quick version. I grew up in London. I went to university in St Andrews. I was very fortunate. I wasn't a golfer growing up. I played football, soccer growing up, and golf was just like we would go to the driving range occasionally. But I go back home now. I said I was going to give you the abridged version, and now we're going off on tangents. But we would play golf at these like really crappy golf courses in London, and so now I go back without being too classist about it. I've lived in St Andrews and Pinehurst, so I've been around some amazing golf. Anyway, went to university in St Andrews, and then moved over to America. I had this degree, so it's my dream job. I don't know if you actually know this about me. I might have told you this before. It was my dream job, probably still is my dream job, to be a Premier League commentator. I had always wanted to do it. I have always wanted to work in sports and be in sports media. And NBC had the rights to the Premier League, still do. And so I've got this degree from St Andrews. I went and got a job at Golf Channel. I had shot a few Dunhill links when I was in St Andrews. So I had like the golf IQ bit, and I started playing golf when I was at university, obviously. And I loved working golf. I think it was better that I was a little removed from it. And I've loved working in golf. And I ended up in Pinehurst. I say because of my wife. That's not like the exact reason. My wife is from North Carolina. We had wanted to be closer to her folks and to our family. And it's because all of my folks are back in the UK. And Pinehurst were hiring for what the job was, digital storyteller. Tom, who I guess it was his idea, or he had spoken to someone, essentially how they had hired someone in-house. I think it was the like tourism agency from Moore County had this guy in-house who did a photo video, and Tom was like, that seems like a good idea. We should hire for our own. And so I moved. I was working at the PJ Tour, and I've loved every minute of it. Well, not every minute, but most of the minutes.
Most of the minutes. So I was able to go to Scotland last summer and spend some time in St Andrews. And being from Pinehurst, I instantly had similarities. I saw similarities between the two.
Oh, for sure.
With the golf and the people and the town. Do you see those similarities?
I think the thing that I didn't realize, and I love it so much now, in Pinehurst specifically, and St Andrews is so interesting, as you know. You have the town, and the golf and the university is so intertwined. And then, between July and September, all the students leave. So it's just a real golf town. And so I was one of those, I've worn both shoes now, where I've been like the golfy guy in the golfy town. And I've also been like the student in the town that like didn't really care about golf. And there was very much a town versus university student feel in St Andrews. You maybe don't get that feel so much in Pinehurst, but what you do get in Pinehurst, it is such a golfing place. Everyone in the village has some level of golf IQ. They might not even realize it. Again, I'll like mention my wife, who I wouldn't say she hates the game of golf, but she like has never played it and has essentially no interest in learning. She's wearing Pinehurst logos, and she knows all the courses and the characteristics of these courses. So everyone in Pinehurst has some level of golf IQ, and I think it's really cool. It's a place which is like golf sicko mode all the time.
Yeah, and that showed at the U.S. Open last year, just like it
100%.
shows for the British Open or the
Yeah.
Open Championship whenever it's at St. Andrews.
Yeah. I think the coolest thing, I was chatting to someone about, I was at number 10 and they were asking if you would ever have a tournament number 10. And I think you maybe would. But I think one of the coolest things about Pinehurst is that clubhouse. And I mean, I know he's a friend of yours, but you get someone like Jackson Van Paris is playing in the North and South Amateur. Pinehurst, the golf town, like that to me is one of the coolest things. Like the people of Pinehurst come out and support. And honestly, Jackson or not Jackson, and you have these people coming out to watch, to be fair, great elite amateur golf, but I'm not sure you get that in many other towns where you've got a few hundred people coming out on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday morning or whatever to like watch golf. And yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, Jackson is someone I really look forward to having on this channel soon.
Yeah.
And you mentioned number 10 when you were out having a leisurely conversation, as one does, as they're just battling number 10, trying to make par on every tough course. I know it's one of your favorites.
Yeah.
I've been most looking forward to this in our conversation. Pinehurst Sandmines.
Yeah.
You've been able to be out there for the birth, creation, and now the play of number 10.
Yeah.
And now you're going to get to do it again on number 11. Talk to me about your experiences out there during that time and what it's like seeing a course being built from trees to now a beautiful world-renowned golf course.
I could probably speak for hours on this. Someone asked me what my favorite golf course was, and I said number 10 because it's probably one of the few golf courses, maybe a couple in St. Andrews, but it's one that I have like a real genuine emotional attachment to, where I can tie moments in my life to moments in that golf course. For example, the day before I got married, I got married on December 10th. On December 9th, I got a text from Tom saying, hey, Tom Pashley, saying, hey, can you come take a headshot of Tom Doak and Angela Moser? They're in town. And I replied, I was like, Tom, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I've got every single person I love dearly in the world is in Pinehurst right now for my wedding. And he goes, he was like, I'm really sorry, but like, we need you to come do it. And so like, it's funny. I think back to like, I think back to number 10. I think back, it measures times in my life, and I have such a deep emotional connection to that golf course, which I got to see built one time. So these people like Angela, who I got to know very well, I can't even begin to fathom the emotional connection they have to these golf courses. I'll say this, you were so effusive with your praise of myself that I'm going to try and knock myself down a peg or two. I realized how many mistakes I made in the like photography and the storytelling of the build of that. And that's not to say that I did a good or bad job, but
it was phenomenal content of number 10. So
thank you.
Don't knock yourself down too much.
But now when we're doing number 11, I have learned so much, and I don't know how many people in the world get to document a golf course being made, let alone do it twice. So it's I've definitely learned from the first time I've done it, and it's really amazing. I don't know the correct sort of adjective to describe it, but it's really amazing to see the transformation, to see how the course evolves. We were out there last week, and the last time I'd seen it properly when it was green was probably October, and it's April now, so 6 months, 7 months. The course looks completely different. And so it's really cool when you speak to Angela or Tom and they're talking about trees and native areas, and they're thinking about what the golf course is going to look like in 50 years' time. And it's really, insane for me to think, and they have to think in time periods like that. So it's really impressive.
So you answered one of the questions I was going to get to, which is your favorite course being number 10. We're getting up to numbers like 10 and 11. We're out here at number 8 right now.
Yeah.
That might sound normal to a guy from Pinehurst, but when you're talking about that many golf courses, that is absurd when you compare it to other places really around the world. How, as the content guy for Pinehurst, are you able to keep track of all those courses? And then from a pure content stance, how do you feel like you're giving enough love to each one?
It's a great question. I think back to what my original title was, which was Digital Storyteller, which at the time I wasn't a huge fan of, because my previous titles have been social media producer or content producer. And Digital Storyteller as such, I'd never heard of a title like that. And I didn't really know what it meant, to be entirely honest. And now I think the magic of storytelling, which is something I've been doing for however long now, is people have stories, but like places have stories. And so to answer your question, that's like a large part of my job, or some semblance of responsibility that I have, is to tell the story of Pinehurst #1, or tell the story of Pinehurst #3. And so now people are going, yeah, we love #3. It's the short course. It's got a ton of character. And that's difficult because, you know, Pinehurst #1 has a rich story versus, let's say, I'm not going to say compare one to another, but they're just different stories and things that we have to tell. And so, yeah, the way I do photography or tell stories through, you know, visual arts for #8 is going to be different to what we do at #10, because they're two completely different golf courses. So, yeah.
Yeah, they are, and it's something that you can appreciate as someone who gets to play the courses.
Sure.
Course 10, hole, what is your favorite?
Course 10, hole 12 is my favorite.
Okay.
It's you get this amazing run of holes on the backside of #10, and 9 plays up. 10 is this awesome par 5, which we've spoken about on the resort channels. We've not spoken that much about hole 12, and I think quite selfishly, it's a golf hole that I'm trying to like show a bit of. Tom Pashley always talks about restraint for the design of the golf course. It's something that I've been trying to do a bit of restraint with on social. I think it's so easy for the day and age and digital and social to show like all the amazing stuff that you have. I think 12 is this gorgeous, gorgeous golf hole. The green site is unbelievable. You crest this hill. The view is unbelievable. The view behind it's amazing. You're in the far side of the property. And it's one of those things, I've actually kind of got goosebumps talking about it. It's one of those things you almost just have to see and feel. And I'm not sure a photo or a video will ever like really do that whole justice. And that's not to say I don't want to try, but it's also something I'm like willing to hold back so that people can reveal it to themselves.
The appreciation for golf right there. That is what makes a great content mind. Matt, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you.
Sweet. Oh, yeah. Dude, that was sick.
I could talk all day to you. It's hard not to.